After you get your pilot certificate, how can you continue flying? Well, one great answer is flying clubs. And we're going to dig into our vault and pull out a great episode guest hosted by Bryan Turner on flying clubs. Hello and welcome to Taking Off Podcast. We're going to open up our library and we're going to pull out this gem that Bryan Turner hosted a couple years back about flying clubs. And it really has become a commonly asked question on social media is I have my pilot certificate or I want to get my pilot certificate. How do I continue flying after I get that? And because I don't have an airplane. A great solution is joining a flying club. But how do you do that? Well, Bryan Turner comes in the hangar and talks to our very own Christy, who is the president of a flying club, as well as a couple of others to answer those questions. So without further ado, let's go to Bryan and In the Hangar.
What's the first rule of Flight Club? That's right, we are going to talk about Flight Club today in the hangar. Welcome to this episode of In the Hangar. I'm Bryan Turner. I'm sitting in for Dan Milliken, who had to get his nails done and couldn't be here today. Today we're going to be talking about flight clubs, and we're here with Gary Larson, who's a member of a flight club, and it's Misty? Christy Wong, who is not only in a flight club, but you oversee the flight club. Is that correct?
I am the president of the flight club.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Today's episode is sponsored by Gold Seal, iFly GPS, and Wingfield Aviation. So one of the things I find interesting about both of you guys is you guys both are plane owners and are also in flight clubs. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about what came first for you.
For me, it was buying a plane first because 10 years ago, there really were no flight clubs on this side of the Metroplex, on the Fort Worth side of the Metroplex.
Okay.
So you either rented from an FBO or where you trained, or you ended up buying your own, which I did after begging my wife for about 6 months.
I understand. So I understand your flight club. I'm familiar with the Naval Flying Club and the story behind that. Was that how this all started for you?
Yeah, the flying club. Yes, I'm one of the directors in the flying club, and so we got a better start than most clubs because we were given an airplane by AOPA, and we're very appreciative of that, and that got us started, and makes it a whole lot easier to form a club when somebody drops the main asset on you and says, "Here, it's free."
I fly my dead serious. I'm very familiar with having the main asset dropped on you.
I understand.
So, Christy, you are also an aircraft owner, and you have opted to, I remember Arrow Valley Flying Club years ago when I was at Northwest Regional Airport. You've moved it away from me to a different airport to make it safer, I suppose. What's the story behind how you got it out of there, and you've grown it quite a bit?
Well, first of all, I'm glad that you got the memo on the wardrobe today, so that's good. Yeah. So when we joined the flying club, it was a little over 4 years ago. We joined the flying club so that I could learn how to fly. Steve wanted to teach me. And there really weren't any other options. The flying club was very small. 2 aircraft, there was a 172 and a Cherokee 235. There was about 20 members in the club. I got very excited about flying, as you can imagine, and asked if I could be part of the board of directors somehow, just to help. The administrative board, what could we do to beef up the club? And the president at the time, David, said, well, we've never had a social director. How about you do that? And I said, okay. And within about 3 months, we doubled the size of the club in terms of membership. Okay. So we needed more airplanes. So we actually looked at buying an airplane for the sole purpose of, okay, well, we'll step up to buy an airplane and put it in the flying club. I actually wanted a Cessna because that's all I knew was high-wing Cessnas, ha-ha, laugh, and Steve really wanted a low wing, and he really convinced me that a low wing was the way to go. So, he actually wanted an Archer because it was a 180 horsepower engine, low wing, Piper, et cetera. Well, we wound up finding the Warrior, and that's a love story all on its own. But we got the airplane, put it in the flying club. The board of the flying club at the time, they approved putting it in the club.
So you bought that plane knowing that you were going to put
Knowing
it in the
that it was
club.
good. Yeah.
I did
So
not know that.
yeah. So we did. People ask me a lot, like, "Oh, if the Wong Warrior is your baby, why do you have it in the club?"
That's going to be my next question.
That's why. That is why. Because it didn't start off being my baby. In fact, a lot of people don't know this. I did not want to fly that airplane initially. I mean, I was a brand new private pilot that really only had 172 experience. And when you're a low time pilot, I mean, I got my private at 65 hours. Every airplane is different.
Sure.
I don't care what, people are saying, oh, it's an airplane, fly it. Well, that's just not the case. When you're, brand new, low time pilot, every difference, counts. And so, but I finally forced myself into the airplane, got to fly it, and then realized what everybody was talking about regarding the low wing. And yeah, real quickly, that airplane became my love. And then I started to regret putting it in the flying club, but at that point, it was, a little bit too late. So we do a lease back to the club. We own the airplane. It's leased back to the club. And the benefit for us is that it doesn't pay for the airplane, but it does help offset the cost of ownership. And so versus Nate Able, you guys actually own the airplanes. We do lease backs. And that's how now, just to kind of update you, the club now has about 100 members and 6 aircraft.
Okay.
And I became the president, and we were able to expand the fleet and expand the membership, and it's just been a really, really enjoyable wild ride.
So if we want to compare and contrast the two clubs, you said 6 airplanes, 150 members?
100.
100 members. And what do you guys have in your club?
2 airplanes and about 40, 45 members.
Okay. And do you guys answer how you want, both all the members in your club actively flying, or is it?
There's probably, 25% that fly, 75% of the hours in the plane. There's a lot of people that just maintain membership because it's relatively cheap so that they can still have access to a plane.
Okay.
I would agree with that. We did the math, and it was about 30% of the members do about 75% of the flying.
Okay.
And we find we have a yearly fee that's paid yearly, and we find most of the time the ones that haven't been flying, when the yearly fee comes up, they start thinking about it. It's like, well, $40 a month is not bad. $250.
It's like after New Year's, everyone starts flying again because they just.
Yes, yeah. Oddly enough, because that's the club was started the first of the year, so each year we have a drop after the first of the year. But it's in this market, it's real easy to pick up new members.
So first question that comes to mind, and I figure probably a lot of people have this question. I actually, before I bought an airplane, was looking at the Arrow Valley Flying Club because it is unbelievably inexpensive to join that club. Mm-hmm. And when I heard how many members there were, that kind of turned me off of it. I thought, and they had the Cherokee.
235,
which was always down, and then they had a Cessna. There was only 2 planes, and so I immediately thought I'm never going to get to fly this plane. And then the serious thing happened, so I was okay. But how is scheduling with that many members?
Actually, it's not bad because, like we said, 25% of the 25 to 30% of the membership do the majority of the flying. But I mean, we rarely have scheduling issues. We ran into scheduling issues. It was probably about 2.5 years ago when we had 4. We actually went down to like 3 airplanes, but then we picked up a 4th and then a 5th airplane. And so we were able to right size it within a couple of months. It's really has not been a problem. My advice to every new member that comes into the club, sometimes people come into the club and I only want to fly the 182, or
Sure.
I only want to fly the Cherokee 180, or I only want to fly the Warrior. And I tell them, get checked out in as many airplanes as possible. So now that you've got options, now that way if the 180 is booked, now you've got the 172 or whatever. And if you do that, there's almost always an airplane available.
What happens when Sun and Fun comes up or one of these big events? Is there a mad rush to get these planes booked?
Believe it or not, no.
And I think I know why, Christy. I don't mean to cross-examine you, but I had my legal team reach out to your flying club, and we pulled up the stats. This is the next 30 Oshkoshes, and if you look who has your Warrior booked for every Oshkosh, that's right, it's Christy Wong. And I don't know why they put that photo there. That's a photo of you cleaning my pool. They have it on the back of the chart that's blown up big too. I don't know why they include that, but I was wondering if when Oshkosh rolls around, how you make sure you've got that Warrior secured.
That would actually be correct. I can't deny that. So I actually do book that airplane 6 to 9 months in advance.
Is it booked for 2021 already?
Yeah, of course it is.
2022?
I have no comment on that. You'll have to get with my legal team on that.
How about you? Do you guys have a fewer number of planes?
Fewer number of planes. we focus mainly on training, young people, allowing them the ability to learn to fly on our planes. So
The legal
that's
team is going to check your work.
you can. Although we do have members that are in their 70s and still actively flying, but they consider themselves to be students as well, as we all are.
Okay.
But we tend to discourage people from renting or wanting to take our planes overnight, because what that does is if someone takes it for the weekend, then the students that need it, for training and what have you, it's not available. And we've had a lot of consternation about that in the club about how do you do that? And we're like, well, with 40 members, if everybody got a weekend to take the plane, then availability would be next to nothing. So for us, that's not that we tend to limit that. Now, if it's during the week when it's less training, less usage, we've had several people that would take it during the week. But for Sun and Fun, Oshkosh, any of the AOPA events, we encourage and allow our members to take it for those those overnights. Tweety, the 150, has been to Oshkosh, and AOPA actually wanted them to park it up on the square and all that, but unfortunately, the people that took it up there were camping with it, and they really didn't want to camp in the square. So.
Why not? You're in the middle of the action.
I would have, but
I would absolutely
reason.
have done that.
So I have a question for both of y'all, especially given the recent events that happened with your Warrior. Do you, if you, before or now, vet people that are coming in?
There's a communication amongst the management of the area flying clubs.
We're in a
baseball, it's like hand signals.
Yeah,
we are in a flying club, if you
Yes.
will.
Oh,
Yes. And we have an unofficial list, I guess you can say, of
similar to that.
I mean, so we do talk. We make sure we work really well together. And we work well with the local area flight schools as well to talk about problem members and whatnot. Yes, we do vet people that come into our club, but there's only so much you can do. We do what we call a two-way interview.
Okay.
People have to come to the airport. They have to meet the airplanes, talk to a board member, sometimes multiple board members.
would you tell me what you mean by meet the airplanes?
Yeah, meet the airplanes. So that way they can see. I mean, it's one thing to see the planes on a picture and be like, oh, it's like buying a house. Would you buy a house sight unseen?
I would not.
Most people would not. And it's the same thing with our flying club. We are not going to allow you to join the flying club until you've actually come and you've seen the airplanes from the inside out, and yeah, they meet the airplanes.
Do they have to have a certain number of hours? Do they have to have insurance? Do they have to have, is there like a list of things they have to meet before they get in for either club?
We end up paying extra for our insurance, so our insurance has a lower deductible. So we don't require our members to have any insurance, any renters.
So they're
insurance.
covered by
They're covered
your policy for the plane that they're renting.
exactly.
Is it the same?
We never used to require renter's insurance until about 2.5 years ago. There was an incident. And at that point, we said no more because insurance is getting. What did you do? Insurance
Good to
is
see here.
insurance's costs are rising, and not only that, dropping clients off of insurance policies is a very real concern.
Okay.
We've known local area clubs and even schools that have lost insurance coverage, and because they've had too many claims on their policy. So we said, okay, from now on, members need to carry at least a minimum $20,000 whole value insurance. They are the primary in case of an incident, and then after that, it would roll, if necessary, if we had like a catastrophic event, then it would roll to the club's insurance.
Okay.
So in this case, if we had an incident where we've got a prop strike or a wing ding or something like that, the member's insurance would pick that up first.
All right. And $1 million question. So after the incident where the Warrior was rolled, I know you lost quite a bit of sleep over that. Have you had thoughts or considerations about pulling the plane out, or what are your thoughts on that?
Okay. For the that first couple of days was so bad.
I remember talking to you on the phone and thinking, she's in a bad place.
Yeah, it was not good. It's so funny. I have to address this because I've seen some of the comments on YouTube and they're like, she's so dramatic. And I'm like, you have no idea.
I was just responding.
I've heard that, yeah.
Yeah, like you have no idea. Like the first couple of days was not good for anybody, but I own that. It was pretty bad because it took the plane out of service and it did a lot of emotional damage to me, just because there was a lack of respect and loss of trust. And I did, in those very dark hours, consider pulling the airplane. However, what I realized was I've owned this airplane for 3.5 going on 4 years. Nobody's ever disrespected the airplane really before then. I don't expect, we had one bad apple I would say probably 200-300 people that have rolled in and out of the club since we've had the airplane in the club. And this was one person that unfortunately slipped through the nobody predicted this out of this particular individual.
Okay. One other question I think is probably important because people who are watching this are probably wondering if a flying club is right for me. And so one of the things I think people would want to know is what does it cost to join up in a flying club? Because everyone knows flying's expensive, flying planes is crazy expensive. Like I said, when I was looking around at clubs, I couldn't believe how inexpensive the particular club you were in was at. So can you talk about the monthly dues?
Absolutely. It really depends on the club. We are a nonprofit Inc. Okay. We are not a 501c3 like Nate Able, but we are a nonprofit Inc. So we do it. It's a labor of love for us. Sure. It's an all volunteer run club, and that's how we're able to keep the costs low. We work with the local FBO to get special rates on the hangars, fuel, et cetera. We do dry tack rates. Monthly dues are $85 a month, and it's a $325 initiation fee, one-time fee to join, and then it's just $85 a month plus the dry tack rates for each of the airplane. Members are responsible for fueling the airplanes after each flight, and that's really it. And then, of course, they're required to carry the renter's insurance. We do it because we are in love with aviation. Sure. We do it for the love of the people, and we're trying to keep people in the air. We're a little bit different than Nate Able because we don't focus on the primary training like they do. So we allow our members to take the planes overnight. We will do advanced ratings, instrument, commercial, CFI. But, I mean, if you look at some of the other clubs, or rental businesses, they're trying to turn a little bit of a profit, and rightfully so. I mean, that's their prerogative. But they are going to be at a higher cost than we are because we're doing it. I mean, everything I put into it is free.
They don't have the same overhead.
Exactly.
I mean, luckily for our club, the namesake's father is a A&PIA, and he maintains the planes. His labor is free, and then we have other club members, other A&Ps that actually help, and occasionally we have to pay, but most of the time that's a cost that we don't have that a normal FBO, normal rental situation would have. Our yearly is $250 a year, and $40 a month, and we've kind of structured that. We looked at what our expenses were on a yearly basis. Insurance is a yearly thing. $1,000 base price for an annual is a yearly thing. So we went in and amortized that out. Of course, now it's a little out of whack with the rising cost of insurance. And then the $40 a month covers the monthly things like the hangar rental, some other expenses, and then we a dry rate just as that club, and for the 150 it's $35 an hour dry, and you really can't touch that anywhere, especially for this nice of a 150 because it's one of the reimagined ones that's just been went through and was given to us, basically brand new, and it's those that know we call it Tweety, and a lot of the controllers know, and when it comes in, they'll tell us, Tweety was out here yesterday or day before or what have you, but like I said, for our club, it's a labor of love. We love to fly. We love helping people learn to fly. Obviously, since we're a club, we don't employ any CFIs; those are all independent CFIs. It's actually been kind of gratifying. Some of our members that got their license and got some hours in our planes have now come back and are instructing.
Really?
Yeah. So it's kind of a neat thing to watch that grow organically. Of course, the airlines shutting things down has helped that a little bit because they have they're looking for hours and they're coming to our club. But the nice thing about the flying clubs in this area is we don't consider ourselves in competition with other clubs.
Okay.
We had a situation where one of our planes was down at another airport, and one of the clubs on the field needed a spot to stick a plane for a while. Come on, put it in our hangar. There's not really a competition. Quite frankly, there's enough business for everybody.
Absolutely. We do a lot of stuff with them. We did a flying club flyout once. It was like 3 flying clubs. We went down to Stephenville for Hard 8, and that was a lot of fun. You know, each club has a slightly different mission and purpose, and it just depends on location and each individual's value system, what they're looking for in a club. And a lot of times I'll have people that will come to me. I had a guy recently in Burleson that was looking for a flying club. And I was like, that's great. We would love to have you as a member, but let me suggest an 8 Flying Club for what you're, or Fort Worth Flying Club. There's just so many great clubs in the area. We're able to work in tandem to get people in the air. And I think that's really what the mission for all of us is.
Cool.
Yeah. It's like I say, it's good times now. When I was learning to fly over 10 years ago, none of these flying clubs existed.
Yeah.
So the only place you either owned a plane or, maybe you were in a partnership or you rented from your FBO where, mostly where you learned to fly from. So, and that's, that's difficult in my case is you want to go to a little fly-in and you want to stay a few extra hours. No, you got to be back at 3 o'clock because, Johnny's coming to fly the plane after you. So that's probably the downside to any rental, whether it's club or FBO, is you're sharing the plane. Talked about scheduling. It's amazing how open the schedule is, because that's one thing we do with a prospective member is we, log them into the booking system and let them see what the availability of the plane is now.
I need to tell my dad about that system because he and I we have a lot of scheduling conflicts with the Cirrus.
You probably just call your mother and she'll mediate.
There you go.
So one other question I have is, how does someone go about starting a flying club if they feel inclined to do that?
I am in a really unique position because I didn't start the club from the ground up, but...
How does one start a flying club if they feel inclined to do that?
For us, the best resource we found was AOPA.
Okay.
They're, Pat Bryan is the representative in this area, and he was instrumental in helping us. But what we ended up doing is we found of course we wanted to be a 501c3 because AOPA required that to transfer the airplane because they were going to transfer it to a 501c3. So we wouldn't just take and sell it and buy something else.
Sure.
Is part of the reason. But one of the other flying clubs, Razorback Flying Club out of Arkansas, we basically took their 501c3 paperwork and did a search and replace and put 8 Flying Club wherever it said Razorback. And fortunate, my daughter's an attorney, and she had a close friend who is a attorney that specializes in nonprofits. And while she advised us, we were not her client. She advised us.
Okay.
And then we submitted to the IRS and got it back in time. And of course, the biggest problem is where do you get the planes? How do you start with the planes? Of course, ours was relatively easy. We were given the first plane, and the second plane, one of our members had offered to finance it for us. So we didn't have to worry about approval or what have you. He just said he'll do it for whatever he was getting in his investments, and we were tickled to death, and he's tickled to death, and he's very active in keeping it maintained now because it's
Sure.
He's beyond now of getting it back because obviously we've paid a lot. We own enough of it that he'll never get it back. But the hardest part is you either have to have a lease back or you've got to have somebody's got to front some money.
Yeah.
Because there is startup costs and insurance is the biggie for us. It was $3,000 5 years ago. It's like $8,000 now. Just for for 2 planes, it's $8,000 a year. So
Does that number grow based on the amount of members that you have?
Not necessarily, because it's just grown every year, and some years exponentially, and some years not quite as much. It's just on the market, and obviously, teaching primary students is probably the riskiest part of aviation as far as insurance.
It was for me.
Yeah, exactly. Of course,
It still is.
Yeah. Of course, none of our students have taken our planes inverted, but that's
Misty's getting mad over here.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, well, I don't worry too much about Missy.
Well, we didn't start the flying club originally, but we did revamp it.
Okay.
So anyway, that's we literally had to rebrand the flying club. And we moved it from Arrow Valley, particularly to get away from Bryan.
A lot of people have.
And, but we did, I mean, we revamped it. We moved it from an LLC to a nonprofit Inc. I mean, we completely started from the ground up. So that was really unique for me because we effectively started a flying club, but we had a backbone from which to do it. And because of that, I've been able to advise other people and other groups who have wanted to start flying clubs on how to do that. I'm actually working with a group up near Champaign, Illinois.
Really?
They're trying to get a flying club started, and they're trying to get into like a partnership. And so I've been advising them on how we do things to get them going.
Last question I guess I would have is, as the club grows, do you have a cap on the number of members that you allow in the club?
We do, actually. We have a pilot to plane ratio that we work off of. And as the membership grows, we kind of evaluate the need. My vision for the club was always 6 airplanes, 3 high wing, 3 low wing, 1 high performance of each. I've been able to realize that vision, fortunately, because of the awesome board and the awesome membership that we have. There has been talk of a 7th plane. There's been a couple that have kind of, we've tinkered with, but it has to be the right airplane for the right mission. I mean, maybe a Grumman would be okay. Yeah,
They're hard to come by right now.
Yeah, I've been told, so.
All right. Well, hopefully this information is helpful to you. If you're on the fence or looking for a way to get into flying, this seems like an economical way to do it as long as you're not wanting to fly a Warrior to Oshkosh anytime soon. So thank you for joining us on this episode of In the Hangar. Please like and subscribe the videos on my channel, Just Plain Silly. Go over there. There's probably a lot of really funny stuff going on right now. Just go now. Don't even watch the credits.